Hey, what's up, guys? Little man with a big opinion here. I'm on my drive home from seeing family, and I've got about 2 hours left. I'm about halfway through the trip, and most of the time, I like to catch up on the news. I'll watch just about whatever, but I'm seeing a trend in the news coming out from our military. It gives me a little bit of cause of concern. And it's not just our military. There's a ton of different people throwing around the term World War III. I read an article yesterday talking about the artillery systems that France is sending to Ukraine, the ammunition factories that Germany is talking about building for artillery, the number of planes, armored vehicles, Estonia talking about sending a bigger military aid package. The one that I read earlier that, if you want to kind of feel like a conspiracy theorist and, connect all the dots and everything, the U.S. Navy, one of the commanders came out and said that all of these anti-ship missile strikes that are going on is really good practice for the U.S. Navy. They haven't, outside of training, they haven't really, got very many hours into dealing with something like this. They're considering it a actual viable threat that they can learn from. They can pass this information off to their allies. And a few years ago, the Army's talking about switching from the 5.56 to a 6.8. They've switched handguns. New equipment is coming out all the time. People are trying to make stuff more powerful, lighter, more efficient. Because I believe every country's military's job is to, defend the country and win their wars. Ukraine has really been just a massive testing ground for Western civilizations. And from all of the information that they've released to us, in a lot of ways, they're very excited about it. Which the military being excited about their equipment kind of puts a chip on their shoulder, and it makes it very difficult to know if our world leaders are trying to kick the can down the road on getting into a major hot conflict, or if they're seeing all these results and saying we don't have anything to worry about. The last article that I'll bring up, I don't remember his exact title, but the guy in charge of the Space Force stuff for Germany is very, very concerned about Russia's nuclear capability. Not so much on the dropping a really big bomb and injuring and killing a lot of people, but more for its EMP capabilities. They are extremely worried about communication being wiped out. And he came out and said, it's not just Russia that you have to worry about, it's also China, all the information we know about North Korea. They can potentially do the same thing. And, in my reading this stuff and, understanding a bit about, fighting wars, I definitely think it would be a lot scarier to not be able to communicate with your allies, your different units and stuff, than it is, watching a city getting wiped out. A city getting wiped out is kind of a acute problem, and in the sense that that problem goes away really fast, and we kind of already know the answer to that. If they're using it for destructive purposes, then you need to implement some sort of countermeasures to keep that from happening again. But wide-scale communication is getting knocked out, then you're having to go to old-school methods. All of your units are trained on using this sort of system, and I don't hear a lot of countries talking about some sort of pace plan. On the small scale unit side, I see pace plans used all the time. We're going to use our radios. Alternative radios aren't working. Walkie-talkies and phones, and our contingent is we're using hand signals and we're sending runners, and emergency is getting super old school with like flags and smoke signals and using whistles and different things like that. And I think that works great up until about the battalion level, but you get much higher than that and you're almost spending more time communicating than you are executing assignments and things like that. Throw all this in, an election year. I've seen a ton of news stuff saying, the Russia-Ukraine war is basically at a stalemate. Every month, one side might gain 5 kilometers into this area, but they also lost 5 kilometers in, this opposite area. There hasn't been all that much progress. So maybe they're going to start stepping their game up. A few people keep mentioning the idea of peace, but a lot of people believe both sides are, they've put all their chips in the middle and they have to wait for the flop and the final card flip. So, I don't see any end to this, especially, the start of 2024 is when we saw dozens of countries upping their, pledged amount of funds or, equipment or ammunition, or we're going to go train this group and do this and that. So I don't see that slowing down at any point. So as a prepper, I don't think we should be slowing down either. I did a video talking about how I spent $100 in February. February's not over yet. I've already planned on what I'm purchasing for March, and it has a little bit to do with the tax return. It has a little bit to do with budgeting. But if the major countries are putting tens of millions, if not billions, into this kind of thing, then the average everyday civilian should also be doing the same thing. Doesn't matter what your budget is. Even if your budget is buying one 50-round box of 9mm or two 20-round boxes of 223, make it happen. Don't just focus all of it on ammo, because you got to feed yourself and take care of all the other different things. But you should, I'd say that's the one okay thing about government is, at the very least, they make a fiscal budget, and for the most part, they try to stick to it. I think the U.S. is off by about $200 billion that they've spent extra on, and the deficit is hundreds of billions. It might be, I think it's in the trillions now. I think it's like 1.6 trillion is the deficit. that's the one thing that I'd say not to do, is don't be putting all of your stuff on some sort of credit unless you have, seriously talked to yourself and you know that, I put $1,000 on a credit card, and I would say no less than 25% of that is getting paid off each month. Like, you're getting back, down to zero within 4 months. And even then, it gets kind of risky because, life happens and things like that. But instead of, doing any type of prepping on credit, you should definitely be taking a look at, your finances. I've got a whole little spreadsheet that shows what I spend. The rent, that doesn't change, so that number's, pretty fixed. Phone bills, internet, stuff like that, those don't really change. The bills that can fluctuate, you take your running average, you add about 10% in case it goes a little bit higher. And when it doesn't, that's your extra money to get more supplies. And then once you've set your whole budget up, then you should be looking at, what can I do to lower this budget? And or what can I be doing to increase the amount that I can put into a budget? So, I mean, I've been donating plasma forever. It gets me about $400 extra a month. About 100 of that goes into, bills and stuff, and then the other 300 is savings, retirement, that $100 for the prepping budget. There is a bigger ticket item that I really want to put on a credit card. It's going to be about $750. The other mindset on that, I'll go do DoorDash for 5 hours a week, and after 2 months, I should be able to, get it without putting it on credit. So, you could act like the government, put a bunch of stuff on your credit card. I'm not telling you you should or shouldn't do that. I can tell you from at least what I see, I'm not going out maxing out my credit cards to increase my prepping. So, that's what I'd say on that. But if you're spending nothing on anything prepping wise, then you should definitely start spending something. The millionaires and the billionaires in the United States are doing it. Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of your average, everyday, middle-class Americans are doing it. So you should probably be doing it as well. I have, especially in the last probably 6 months, I've released a lot of videos about things that you can be working on to better prepare yourself that don't cost any money. Matter of fact, when I get home today, it's Sunday, do a little bit of housework, and then I'm going to go outside and film a video about building a log cabin style campfire and a teepee style campfire. I know a lot of people probably already know how to do that. Anyone that has spent any amount of time in scouting, the outdoors, camping, backpacking, maybe you learned it in the military, you spent a lot of times outdoors, and maybe you didn't know that, there was a name for it, but, your dad taught you the simple science behind building a campfire. It's not just throwing a bunch of sticks on a pile and holding a match to it, poof, it lights up. But there's probably a lot of people that have never done it before in their life. And so, that video might take me 25 minutes to make. It might take a bit longer because I like a good campfire, and I'll probably sit around it for a while and just enjoy being outside. But even if you've never done that skill before, I definitely put that in the Barney level of learning, that if you watch the 15 to 20 minute video, it might take you 2 or 3 tries, but you should have that skill locked in, the same day that video comes out. It's probably going to come out Monday, so you spend an hour and bam, now you're able to build a half-decent campfire. But that video is going to come out in the next couple of days. I've talked about, the working out that I'm doing, and I've made a Google Classroom where I put in the workouts that I do. For some of the workouts, I have easier movements and exercises to do, and for some of them I've got more advanced level stuff. I'm doing that program for free. I'm not a personal trainer or anything. I've just did sports in high school and college, and that's something that even yourself could spend 5 minutes, look something up on the internet, go do it, and the only thing that's going to cost you is your time and, maybe some sore muscles the next day. But there is plenty that you can be doing to better yourself, make yourself a more rounded individual. And if the governments are doing it, this is the only time I'll really praise them. If the governments are putting time, effort, and money into it, then maybe you should be doing the same thing. But I think I've ranted on long enough. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section down below. I do my best to answer all of them, and if it is a more, lengthy question, it might turn into a video. If you enjoy what we're doing with the channel, hit the subscribe button. Last time I looked at something, it said like 10% of the people that watch these are subscribed. So, let's take that number up. And it definitely helps if you share the channel with friends and family that would benefit from these discussions. And with that, catch you in the next one.